Welcome to James McGinty to this week's brand new business podcast. James is a professional speaker, he's a trainer and a coach. Well, let's welcome James in and tell us what you do, James.
Hi, Trudy. Yeah, thanks very much for inviting me along. As you said in my intro, trainer, coach, speaker. I like to think of myself as a professional speaker because that's quite grand. But truth be told, I earn most of my money as a trainer, training people in soft skills, management, leadership, communications, that type of thing. But I also coach people in speaking, and when I can, I give keynote speeches, conferences, seminars, and things like that.
And we know each other through Toastmasters, which is a speaking organization. And you have won one or two awards in that. We were just talking about that, weren't we?
Yeah. I joined Toastmasters. I think it was around 2003. I really can't remember. And I joined it to try and enhance my speaking skills. I was already quite good, but had no formal training. So I went there to try and learn some aspects of public speaking to help me develop my skills as a trainer. And I discovered competitive speaking, which is a bit of an odd thing to do. But every year, Toastmasters have 4 competitions, and I decided to enter them and had a little success at first. Not much, but a little success. And the success made me feel good, and the failures made me want to try harder. And that trying harder is what really enhanced my speaking skills. And I've won dozens, well over 100 trophies, and I've not yet won the world championship, Trudy. That's always been my
James.
goal. And I got to the quarterfinals last year, so hoping to do better this year. It's really massively improved my speaking and given me a lot of confidence in all my roles as a speaker, a trainer, and a coach.
And you started your business. How long ago did you start your own business?
It's been about 5 years. I so wish I'd started it earlier, but
Really?
I couldn't. And this is one of the things that a lot of people say, I can't do this because, and I can't do this because. And I've had a very checkered career. I'm a rubbish employee. I'm a dreadful employee. I have no respect for authority whatsoever. And the longest I ever stayed in the same job was 5 years, or with the same company. I was always good at what I did. I would join at ground floor level and eventually get promoted to senior management. And then I would just go, oh, I don't like this anymore. I really don't. So when I think about it, I wasn't just a bad employee, I was a bad boss as well. And I was somebody who absolutely should have been self-employed from the outset, and had their own business. But I was just in a circumstance within my marriage where my wife was a lot older than I was, and she was very old-fashioned, and she was terrified at the idea of me running a business where I couldn't guarantee an income from month to month. And she was terrified of it. And sometimes we do have to make choices. And I'm not sure whether I made the right choice in not pursuing that, because I've been made redundant 3 times in my career for various, mostly economic downturns in the market. And I've been made redundant. And those were times when I could have started my own business and actually tried, but Margaret was really dead against it. And I understood the reasons why. And, on balance, I think I should have went for it earlier, but we do things for our partners because we love them and we want to have like a relationship that's in harmony. So I made the choice and eventually found jobs and went back to work each time.
I think that's a huge thing when you're starting your business. You really need that support of your spouse or partner. I think I probably would have left my old company sooner and started again if my husband had sort of said to me, yeah, do it. But yeah, it took a while, and uh, for me to have that real fire in my belly to say, I need this, I want this.
Yeah.
And as soon as I did, he was full in, fully committed with me. Like, yeah, okay, fine. If that's what you really want, go for it. But you have to sometimes have enough passion for both of you.
Yeah.
And if you can't, then you can't. And it
Yeah.
sounds Margaret was
Yeah.
quite tough to persuade.
She was, and the other thing was, because she was much older than me and old-fashioned, she retired way before I did. So it wasn't a question of we could maybe struggle along on one salary while I get the business going. We just wouldn't have had enough money to actually support us. And while some governments have been generous with benefits and things over the year, none of them would say, oh no, here, have a few grand while you get that business off the ground.
Mm.
You've got to make your own way. And reliant just on Margaret's state pension, we wouldn't have been able to live on that. So we did need some money behind us. So in the occasions where I got made redundant, there was some money there, and I did try, but as I say, Margaret, she was just terrified that we could lose our house, and that we'd have no money coming in, we'd be living like paupers. And I fully understood that. But yeah, if you've got a supportive partner, and even if it does mean you're going to have to scrimp and scrape, but get by on just the one salary, I would say to anybody, go for it. Start your business. I've never met anybody who's had a business for more than 5 years that didn't regret not starting sooner.
Mm.
Almost everyone says, I wish I'd started sooner. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big believer that everything happens for a reason and the time is right when the time is right. I do, on one hand, think, oh, I wish I'd saved myself a lot of unhappiness, like by staying where I knew I shouldn't be. But on the other hand, I don't know, as you go through life, you get experiences and knowledge and confidence, and the time is only right when the time is right. It has to be that moment of conviction, utter conviction.
Yes, yeah, I think that's really true. I think that's really true that the time has to be right. But I also believe that for many people, the time is right more often than they believe it is. Because we hear this so often, especially in self-development, that don't wait for it to be perfect. Just do it now. And sometimes that holds us back. Well, I've got my business plan. I've got my idea. I just need to finish writing this manual. I just need to finish. Oh, I'm going to need new lighting for my office. I'm going to need, do you know what? The car that I've got, I'm worried that it won't be able to do the mileage I need. I'll maybe need to just earn another couple of grand so that I get a better car that will be reliable and do the job. So you're absolutely right. Things have to be in the right place, but we shouldn't wait till it's perfect. We should go, do you know what? I've got enough bricks here to build my business from. I've not got enough to complete the roof, but once I get started, I'll get that, and we'll get the roof over our head and we'll be secure. So yeah, I think you've got to have most of your ducks in the row, but you can afford to have a few waddling about round the place and bring them back in a bit later. Yeah. So yes, it was regrettable that I waited as long as I did, but I think my reasons were very sound, because it would probably, if I had put my foot down and said, no, I'm doing it, it would potentially have destroyed the relationship. So I think I probably made the right decision. But I would advise other people, if you can find a way to financially support yourself while you're building a business, I would say absolutely go for it.
It's interesting. The last two guests I've interviewed, Andy Barden, he just decided, and he'd had very little in place, and he just leapt, and he's kind of fighting fires as he goes along, and it's really intense, and he's just done it. But the next one who I interviewed was Serena. She's just, her episode has just come out. She literally did everything, learned everything she could, put all of her ducks in a row, she had to do that for her then to be able to launch, and it
Yeah.
took her like 2 years, but it took Andy like a week to decide. It took
Yeah.
Tarina 2 years. So yeah, all very different. But for you, what, because you became self-employed at the age of 62. So
Yeah.
what happened?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, in sort of about 3, 4 years beforehand, my wife had been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and I carried on working for a couple of years, and then realised that we couldn't cope. There was no way we could cope with Margaret's Alzheimer's while I was working. She wasn't deeply into the throes of Alzheimer's, but she was forgetful. She couldn't like forward plan or anything like that, and she was getting miserable and depressed. She was really absolutely dreadful, and actually, if people go to my website, my TED talk on caring for Margaret with Alzheimer's is there, and I'm not selling anything through it. I'm not trying to gain business. I just think it's something that people would find worthwhile to watch and understand that part of the journey, because more and more people are getting diagnosed with Alzheimer's because people are living to an older age. So she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and we had 2 years of absolute heartbreak. And eventually I came to realize that something had to change. We couldn't carry on doing what we were doing. And I needed help. And I'm not good at asking for help. Born in the west of Scotland, council housing estate, first job, welder in the shipyards. I'm a tough, macho alpha male. I can't be doing with this asking for help stuff. But then I realized, no, I can't do this on my own. I do need help. So we made a decision to move back to Scotland, and Margaret has a son that lives nearby, and we could get support from him. I've got a sister that lives nearby, so we could get support from her, and it was fantastic. Because Margaret was a beautiful, wonderful woman. She absolutely was. And her son loved having her to stay for a couple of days. My sister loved having her to stay for a couple of days. And that meant that I could have her stay with them. And that's when I started doing mostly coaching and keynote speaking, but very much on a part-time basis because I had to dedicate my time to Margaret. And I found I was really enjoying it. And I picked up keynote speeches in Belgium, Norway, Canada, the US. And they were few and far between, but they were there. And I love traveling. So I loved going back and forth. And I would take Margaret with me on some of them if it was a longer trip. If it was a shorter trip, she would stay with her son or stay with my sister. And that gave me release. And it also let me do something that I really, really enjoyed. But it wasn't enough to sustain us. It really wasn't. And I had to give it up because we got to a stage where we had to rely on government benefits. And keynote speaking, it's reasonably well paid. And you have to declare it for tax. And if you do that, they see it as working income. Therefore, you lose benefits. And it becomes a quagmire. Sometimes you can get away with it as long as you declare it and they deduct that amount from your benefit. But it means you're going out working for nothing. Because the government take whatever you earn, and that's fair. I don't have a problem with it. It's only fair if you've got money, you shouldn't be getting those benefits just handed out to you. So I'm okay with it, but it did mean you were working for nothing. So in the end, I thought, to simplify things, I'll just stop doing it, and then we'll know where we stand with benefits. It won't be complex or complicated. And sadly, about a year later, Margaret passed away. And by that time, because of the way the benefit system works, all my benefits were based on Margaret, because I had pension credit so that I didn't need to apply for jobs to get unemployment benefit, carers allowance, attendance allowance. So, of course, when Margaret died, all those benefits stopped.
Wow.
And I was left penniless. and in quite a dire financial situation. And then even when I did apply for benefits, I thought, I can't live on this. Now, I know some people do. Yeah, I know some people manage, but we develop different lifestyles over the years. And I just thought, I can't possibly live on this. And I thought, who's going to employ a 62-year-old that hasn't worked in 5 years and has never been in a job for more than 5 years in his life? And I kind of worked out the answer to that was nobody, apart from maybe Tesco, and I could spend my life stacking shelves. And while I appreciate we need people to stack our shelves, and I've seen many a happy shelf stacker. You see people sat there whistling away, stacking the shelves, quite happy. It's fantastic, but it's not for me. And a friend said, "You're quite good at Microsoft Excel, aren't you?" And I was like, yeah. I said, "I know somebody that's looking for a Microsoft Excel trainer. Get in touch with them." And I got in touch with this agency, and I did a few Excel courses for them, but they actually asked me to do some other stuff, which was more bespoke training, where you go and learn another company's systems and then train their staff in them. And then they seen that I was quite good at all this, so they asked me to switch over to start doing more of the soft skills, the communication skills, presentation skills, management, leadership. So it was a kind of accidental drift, born out of necessity 5 years ago. And what's really good is that I get 2, maybe 3 days a week work from that agency still, but I'm then able to spend the other days like marketing, my own skills, as a speaker, as a coach, and doing some of my own training courses and things like that. So I've actually now got 2 income streams. One where still self-employed, but working through an agency, and finding other work through my own marketing ends and things like that. So it was somewhat accidental, but I'm absolutely loving my life, and just to top things up, I've now got my state pension, which is fantastic. It's like free money dropping into an account because I'd like balanced my books based on my business, and now I've got extra money coming in through my state pension, and the idea of retiring appalls me. I couldn't. Now I'm so happy doing what I'm doing, and I just, the idea of not doing it anymore and retiring just appalls me.
How funny. So at the age of 65, you have finally found your calling, that thing that you were meant to
Yeah,
do, that fills you up, that makes you
yeah,
happy.
yeah. As I say, I was 62 when I started, 67 now because it's been five
Oh, wow.
years, and I feel like an 18-year-old. Oh, it's incredible when it's when you find that thing that fulfills you. It doesn't matter what age it starts at. Just go out and chase it. With all your might. I mean, I've put on a few pounds over the year as well, so I don't chase it as fast as I used to. But yeah, and I genuinely believe that most people don't ever find the thing that fulfills them. I think too many people go into a job and, okay, there are no jobs for life anymore. And our millennials are wonderful people. They are amazing. My great niece has 3 jobs and she loves every one of them because they're all part-time. So she does a few hours in a card and gift shop. She does a few hours bar work, and she does a few hours running a silent disco. And she absolutely loves her lifestyle because she's got a couple of days during the week where she doesn't work, but she does work at the weekends. She's got 4 or 5 evenings a week free, and she's got enough income to keep her going. And she's doing stuff that she loves all the time. But she trained as an actress, and she's picked up a few acting jobs. And when she gets an acting job, she just says to the people that she's working with, "Yeah, I can't come in and work just now. I've got an acting job and that's what I love. So, and I think a lot of millennials are like that. They're more likely to shift and move jobs and move around. So they've got a much better chance of finding the thing that fulfills them because they'll try different things. But my generation, most of them, I don't think, ever found the thing that fulfilled them.
I mean, you tried to find it. I was just looking at your list of jobs that you have tried:
Yes.
landscape gardener, farmhand, welder, telecoms engineer, college lecturer, IT director, area manager, help desk engineer,
Yeah.
labourer, metal worker, bartender, and vast. So
Yeah.
it sounds like your great niece is doing several things at once, and you've done like so many things across like
I think it might be a family trait.
yeah.
My mother had quite a few different jobs as well, and like she did sort of house cleaning, cooking, baking, lollipop woman, traffic warden. She did all sorts of different jobs. My sister had quite a few different jobs as
Yeah.
well, and so I think it might be genetic, but yeah, but I think if you're in a job and you don't like it, move on.
Yeah.
Just and people say it's difficult. There's no jobs around. If you've got grit and determination, you will find a job because there are jobs there. There's just not enough jobs for everybody. But if you've got grit and determination, you will be one of the ones that gets the new job. And that's why I've been all those different things. As I say, from a welder to a social worker to a telecoms engineer, those are all such different careers. There's no connection between them. But each one in their time was something that I wanted and needed to do. I mean, I loved my time as a social worker working in a children's home, but it was stressful. And again, there was people telling me to do that job in a particular way, and I didn't think it was the right way to do that job. I didn't think it served the children properly. And in the end up, because I was being forced to do something that I didn't want to do, because them's the rules, I just moved on. It's the environment that we work in that sometimes ruins a job for us. We can be in a job that we like, but the people around us, the rules and regulations, that's what stops us thriving in it. So if you've got your own business, you make the rules and regulations. Okay, if you're an independent financial advisor, you have to stick to some rules and regulations, and that's only right. But you can choose how you stick to those rules and regulations. You can choose how you do it. And for me, that's the big thing about having your own business. If my agency calls me and says, do you want to do this course next week? I can always say no. I tend not to because the more you say yes, the more they offer you, which is useful. But I have turned down work and said, do you know what? No, I'm taking a day out that day. I'm going for a drive and I'm going to my own business. I can do what I like. And I do take days off to go for a walk on the beach. I do take days out to go for long drives in the countryside. And it's just an amazing lifestyle if you get it right.
I mean, it's interesting. So for me, I've been a graphic designer forever. Like I studied graphic design. I became a junior graphic designer, a middleweight graphic designer, senior graphic designer, and then I started my own graphic design business. So for me, it's always been so clear what I wanted to do, what I love doing. But it's not quite so straightforward for a lot of people. They tend to, well, when you don't know what it is, that thing, it's so hard, isn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely is. I mean, I started life as a welder in the shipyards because that's what all my mates did. And that was the big industry where I lived.
Yeah.
I only had two friends that didn't go into the shipyards as either welders or engineers. And those two became electricians working on building sites because that was the other sort of occupational area. And later in life, I had a few friends who worked in the car factory because there was a big car factory there. And people just, we were like zombies. We just walked blindfold into the jobs that were there without any thought about like career progression or anything like that. And school didn't prepare us to go out into the world and see what was different about it. School wasn't varied enough either to make you think, oh, I would like to do such and such. And I couldn't possibly have become a graphics artist, for example, because I have no talent whatsoever in that area. And I mean, absolutely none. Margaret was an amazing artist. And Margaret used to say to me, would you like me to do you a special painting, for your den? I had a den, and she had an art studio. We bought a house that was way too big for us. We bought a 3-bedroom house, and then I converted the attic so that I could have a den and Margaret could have an art studio. And I sketched it out for her, and she just went, what is that? What on earth is that you've drawn? And she couldn't, I'm going, it's a cow. She's going, no. So I've got no talent in that area. But a lot of people, I think, who have got talent at painting, drawing, music, that kind of thing, stuff that's more related to the arts, they do find their muse. Not all of them, but many do. And I'm so delighted that you've always been able to do what you wanted to do, because that is special, being able to do that. But yeah, I jumped about all these jobs, and they fulfilled me for a little while. I was a good welder, and I really enjoyed it. It's an amazing skill to have. But once you've welded the same thing 200 times, you're like, no, I don't want to be doing this when I'm 65. And when I was a telecoms engineer, I loved what I did there. But I installed the first ever fiber optic cable in the UK.
Ooh.
And I thought, there goes my job. Because I was a telephone cable engineer, not a fiber optic engineer. And the skills that I had, they were transferable, but they didn't need as much testing. You put it in and it works. And I was the guy that tested stuff and adapted it and made sure it worked, whereas this stuff just worked. And I thought, yep, that's my career over, time to move on. So, and it took me a long time to discover that standing up in front of people and helping them to understand things. So I spent a lot of time employed as a trainer, and I was with 3 different training companies, and we would have a downturn in the industry. I would get made redundant. I'd find another job. And during that, I learned a lot of IT skills and got promoted to IT manager, IT director, and get made redundant, went to another company, set up an IT help desk for them, moved up through the ranks. And I always enjoyed the process. But then once stuff was settled, laid out, it's like, I don't like this anymore. Whereas with my own business, I'm always looking for the next thing. I'm always writing a new keynote. I'm always developing new training materials for my own clients. And it's just, there's always progress there. When you're in your own business, you learn that you can't stand still. Because if you stand still and you're doing well, people will copy what you're doing. Not a direct copy necessarily, but they'll end up doing the same stuff that you're doing. And then you'll just become one of the crowd. So you have to step up. You always have to be a step ahead of everybody else. You always have to be working and moving forward. And that's one of the things I love about having my own business.
It makes it interesting. It really makes it interesting. And also you become the orchestrator. You are the master of your own destiny.
Yeah.
You choose who you work with. You choose how you work with them. You choose what the kind of person that you want to work with, and you focus on that. It's like so much more in your hand, in your control.
Yeah, yes, and that is so true. And I look for maybe particular types of clients, because the thing that really fulfills me is giving keynote speeches at big conferences. That's what really fulfills me. I'm one of these really odd people that the bigger the audience, the more I like it, which is strange because I'm actually an introvert. But to me, an audience is one person, so it feels like a one-to-one conversation. So I can do one-to-many as if it's just one person there. But the many to one bit I don't like, when lots of people try and talk to me afterwards. I don't like that bit, but I tolerate it. So yeah, I'm always seeking out new audiences, but there are, I do have a set of values, I've got a set of ethics, and there are organizations that if they came to me and said, would you like to do the keynote at our conference? I might look at it and go, no, that doesn't gel with me, and it doesn't matter how much you're going to offer me, I wouldn't do it. And I won't name any of the organizations because there'll be other people who think, well, why would you not? They're a perfectly reasonable organization. But if they don't match my values, I won't work with them.
And that is it. When I'm working with businesses and we talk about their brand and what that means, what that actually is, we always talk about values. We always talk about, what do you really care about? What influences you in terms of who is your target market? Who do you want to work with? How do you want them to perceive you? How do you want them to see you? So it's always really good to know these are my values. And for me, I wrote them down, and those are the ones I live by. And I'm fairly sure that you're probably the same in terms of you know yourself, you know your values.
Yeah, absolutely. And I place integrity at the very, very top of those. That's absolutely essential. And I won't do something for the wrong reasons. I believe in honesty. And if I couldn't work with an organization, I would tell them why. And I would say, I'm really sorry, but our values don't align. You have done such and such in the past, and I couldn't be associated with your company because of that. And I'm really sorry about that. But that's where I am, because I believe people need to know your why. And we talk about this all the time. And I'm very aware that I have an ego. You don't enter speaking competitions and try and win them unless you've got an ego. You don't become a keynote speaker unless you like standing up and getting applause and praise from an audience. So most people don't recognize that. They actually have egos and don't realize that I'm very, very aware of my ego. And sometimes that ego could get in the way of my values if I don't live those values. Because if somebody came to me and said, we'd like you to do a keynote in front of 25,000 people, I've never worked with an audience that size. And that would feed my ego massively.
Yeah.
But I would still have to check in with my integrity and my honesty and go, is this a client that I'm comfortable working with? And not let the paycheck and the size of the audience get in the way of that. So those values are absolutely crucial to a business. And I know businesses that will do anything to bring money in. And I had a carpet fitted in when I'd converted my spare bedroom to an office. I had a carpet fitted, and the person, self-employed, it was his own business, because I deliberately went to someone who was independent, because I believe independent businesses should support other independent businesses.
Yeah.
And he lied to me about the service he was going to provide. And it was when we got to the end of the job, the carpet was lovely, it was really well fitted, and there was a pile of scraps in the corner all mounted up. And I said, do you need a bin bag for those? And he said, oh, we don't take those away. I said, you told me you did. He said, is it in the contract? Oh, I thought, oh, not only will I never use you again, but none of my friends will ever use you.
No.
Because you told me that you would fit the carpet and remove all waste. But in the contract, it did say it is the customer's responsibility to remove the waste. But who needs a contract for fitting a carpet?
No.
You just don't. So he was within his rights because I signed that contract, but the morals were just wrong. And I couldn't run a business like that. So Yeah, and there are businesses that will just take whatever money they can get.
But it won't serve him. It won't serve him in the long run for
No,
exactly the reason you just said, that you won't use them again and none of your friends will. Bad news ultimately travels so much faster than good news.
yes, it does. It does. And yeah, I mean, years ago, we contracted a plumber who wasn't very good. And we had some trouble with them. And we eventually had to get somebody else in to fix the mess he made. And the person who came in said, "You're actually lucky to get a hold of him." He said, "Because he has to work so far away from home now where nobody knows him, in order to get work, that he's rarely available for local stuff. And everybody knows about him around here. And he doesn't get work except from people like you who are new to the area." Yeah.
Oh
And
no.
that's what happens with businesses that don't have high moral and ethical standards, is that people just stop going to them. And
Yeah.
they either have to seek new markets constantly, or fold, because the best, I'm sure you know, the best advertising is word of mouth.
It always.
Yeah. And as you said, bad news travels way faster than good. And people eventually run out of customers if they don't have those high ethical and moral standards.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. What in your business would you say are the hardest bits? What are your biggest struggles?
Oh, finding new clients. Absolutely. As I say, I'm fortunate because my business is split in two. One side of it, the training side, I do have some of my own clients now and again.
Mm.
And I do get some referrals from those clients, but it's a trickle rather than a deluge. But a lot of my work, and probably, if I'm honest, the bulk of my income comes through the training work I get through an agency. But even then, I've got to be constantly updating my skills, letting them know I've updated skills, that I can do different types of courses and things like that. So I have to develop my skills and keep them up to date. But for the rest of the business, it's the marketing. I'm just not brilliant at marketing. And I've recently taken on board a VA, or a virtual assistant, for those that have not heard the term, because I was actually doing marketing for keynote speeches at conferences, and I was selling myself short in my own marketing. I was thinking, oh, they probably wouldn't want me for that conference because, no, I don't think I'd be a good fit with that conference because. So I've got this huge list of conferences that I can apply to speak at, and I was cutting it down to about 10% of its size based on they probably won't want me because I'm not a good fit for that industry.
James.
We all do it. We all do it at some point in our lives. So I looked at it and I thought, why am I doing this? And the answer was, I'm not really that sure. So what can I do about it? So I just employed a VA and handed the task over to her and said, here's my email, right? Send this out to everybody on that list that meets, because there are certain criteria, because there are some that I know it's pointless going to. But I gave her the criteria, and now she sends that out to everybody on that list. And it's still a highly competitive business, so I don't get a huge amount of work from it, but I do get, again, a trickle rather than a deluge. But you keep pursuing it, and eventually the trickle will grow into a small stream, into a river, and then into a deluge. And you just have to keep working at it. But it's hard work. And when you get no, you just have to keep going and not get dispirited. I'm also in the process of, somebody has rewritten my email for me, because the one that I had, I don't think was working as well as it could have. So somebody's rewritten that email for me, and I'm about to try that one out and see if I get better results with it. And this is this process of keep stepping up, stepping up, stepping up,
Yeah,
stepping up.
yeah. And it's great to get help. I took on a VA as well
Yeah.
about 2 years ago now, and she helps me so much on the marketing.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm branding, but yes, I know quite a bit about marketing too. But still, it's brilliant to get outside help, and it's great to get people who can look at you and be objective. We tend to be our own worst critics
Yes.
more than we should.
Yeah.
Always
Yeah.
feel like you say, I can't do that. It's so easy to talk yourself out of almost anything.
Yes. Yeah. And that's exactly what I was doing. And thankfully, because, I'm now master of my own destiny, I'm able to look at myself and go, why are you doing that? Whereas if I was employed, I would just carry on doing whatever I was doing. And unless somebody came and said, you need to change that, I would just carry on. But because it impacts my future, then I have to sit back and question and say, why are you doing that? It's not working. You're not helping yourself. What are you going to do to fix it? And as I say, the fix in that case was getting a virtual assistant. And I mean, it's amazing how many virtual assistants there are out there and how good they are. And in a lot of cases, she only does 1 hour a week for me.
Oh, wow.
That's because that's all I need for this particular task. Occasionally, another task crops up, and I'll ask her if she's got 2 or 3 hours spare and to do something for me there. But mostly, it's a routine task. It happens at 1 o'clock every Monday, and it just works. And I think that outside help is absolutely vital. You can't do everything yourself.
No, and we shouldn't even try. But that's a sort of thing you kind of learn as you go along.
Yeah.
At the beginning of a business, you do everything, and in some respects, that's a great process to go through, because you need to understand everything it takes to run a business. But then as you grow and develop, the best skill that you can take on is what to let go of, where to focus your attention, what are the bits where you thrive and that you're really skillful at, and what are the bits that you can let go and should let go.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, I would like to be in a position where the only thing I do is stand up in front of my clients, because that's what I'm really, really good at. And it would be fantastic if that was the only thing that I did. I'm not sure I'll ever achieve that, because that requires several people around you doing several different things. Therefore, that means you have to have a much larger income to be able to support those people. But also, I know so many businesses, and I've read so many stories of businesses where they have let go of lots of stuff round about them, and they've just done the client-facing work. Because I'm sure you would just want to sit and do the design all day.
Yeah, big time.
And not worry about the rest of the stuff, but you let go of it. And I know people have been defrauded because they've done that. They've had people do really poor work because they've done that. And eventually the business is folded, despite them doing brilliant work with the client. So you at the very least, need to be a bit of an octopus and have a tentacle here and a tentacle there and another one there, just sort of touching stuff and going, is this okay? Is this working for me? And making sure that's happening. So, but I think that outside help, absolutely vital.
Your kind of top tip is, what would that be in terms of deciding to start your own business?
I think the first and the biggest top tip is, do you have a route into that market? Because that's really important. I think, like, we exchange the occasional comment on LinkedIn, and I know that LinkedIn's a great market for you, because you'll get lots of clients through LinkedIn. It's a great window, a great shop window for you. It's not so great for me, because people don't generally come onto LinkedIn looking to see if there's a professional speaker there. They will come looking for copywriting, logo design, things like that. But I get most of my speaking work elsewhere. I didn't really know the route into that market. And that has made it difficult to develop that side of the business. It's coming along ever so slowly, but it's finding the route into that market that's really important. And I think a lot of people start businesses quite naively, thinking, I've got a great product, I'm going to start my own business. And then they discover it's not easy to sell and they don't know where their market is. So I think doing a little bit of market research for most businesses is a really critical thing to do. What's the
You know what?
market?
That is so true. The amount of times I talk to people who come to me for a logo and I say, who is your target market? And they say to me, anyone. I could literally, I could sell this product to anyone, or anybody would benefit from this service. And at that point, I bang my head on the table, like, no, because I can't create a brand around you servicing, doing everything for everyone.
Yeah.
That's not how it works. And we're always trying to get them then to focus on who they are, their history, their knowledge, and not always, but quite often, their absolute perfect target market would be them 5 years ago or them 10 years ago. It's something that they know an awful lot about. It's something that they understand, their feelings. How did this person feel? What benefit, what real tangible benefit will they get from you? Because you've got the then and now. And even with products, it's like something that you've used and it's changed your life. How has it changed your life? Why has it changed your life? It's changed my life because these are my values. These are my needs, and my needs are met. So yeah, 100% endorse what you've just said.
Yeah, I mean, a great example of that. I watched. I was speaking in Ireland, and I was in a hotel, and they just had terrestrial TV. And Irish terrestrial TV is not for me. I couldn't really find anything worth watching, and I flicked through the channels, and I came across the Irish equivalent of Dragon's Den. There was two guys on there, and they had been working in an office, and the bane of their life was spam faxes coming through. Like the fax machine was just filled with advertising spam. He had an idea for how he could stop it. And he got this other guy on board. They remortgaged their houses and invested huge amounts of money into this product. And they produced this item that went between your fax machine and your phone line. And it stopped the spam faxes coming through. But it took them 5 years to develop it, by which time the fax machine was redundant.
Oh, no.
And they went on Dragon's Den looking for more funding to actually pay for mass production of this item. And all the dragons just went, the market doesn't need it. And they're saying, oh, there's still enough faxes out there to support it. And I go, no, there just isn't. And they hadn't done the market research. They were so focused on developing this product that they hadn't seen the market change. And it was an unmarketable product, and it looked like both of them were going to lose their houses.
Oh, no,
it's just tragic. But if people don't understand the market they're going into, then disaster is going to follow. And I think it's fantastic what you just said there, that you support people who come to you and say, oh no, I can sell this to anybody. And you go, yeah, it's not milk. It's not milk, it's not bread. You can't sell that to anybody, because if you try that, you'll sell it to nobody. So unless you have got a universal product, and if you have, people beat a path to your door anyway. So if you've got a product or service, you definitely need to recognize the market. And I applaud you, Trudy, for saying to people, I can't do a brand that does that. We need to identify your market so that I can brand you into that market. So yeah, really important.
Yeah, much rather have an inch wide and a mile deep than a mile wide and 1 inch deep, because it's a recipe for disaster. It's a recipe for failure, to be fair, especially for the small business owner.
Yeah. One of the courses I teach is on leadership in a digital world, and they now have a new phrase, which is T-shaped, which means you have to be an inch wide and a mile deep, but you also have to have some general knowledge that's a mile wide and an inch deep. So you've got this sort of, flat of the T that you need to know a bit about, because we can communicate all over the world now, and everything is it's changed massively, but you still need that core to be an inch wide and a mile deep, even if you do have lots of other knowledge floating about in the top. So they're now saying people need to be T-shaped, but the important bit of the T is the upright rather than the bar across the top.
And it is interesting in terms of the people who want to start a business. Some people just want to start a business.
Yeah.
And they have no idea really what they want to start a business in. They just know that they want to start a business. That is also very tricky because
Yes. Yeah, it really is. And the thing is, there are business opportunities out there in almost anything. When I lived down south before I moved back to Scotland, I had a friend, and his wife had a hugely successful business as a dog walker.
Yeah,
hugely successful. And it was all just word of mouth. And she was in an area where lots of people had dogs, but they worked.
yeah.
And she had keys to all their houses. She was well trusted. And she went out and went into the houses, and she would take out 2 or 3 at a time. And fantastic business. And I think she got lucky, because she was one of these people that just said, I want to have my own business. But she really didn't know what it was she wanted to do. And somebody kind of jokingly said to her, you can take my dog for a walk for a start.
Mm-hmm.
I also know other people that want to have their own businesses. There's a chap in Glasgow who wants to have his own business. He got made redundant, and he went to a business show, and he bought a McDonald's franchise. And he now has the franchise, I think, for 15 McDonald's in and around Glasgow, and he's making a small fortune. So that's another route. If people get made redundant and they're looking for a business, is a franchise. Maybe not McDonald's, because I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, but there's lots of franchises out there for people who say, I want to run a business.
Yep. And I've got that on my list of people to talk to, actually. Somebody who's a franchisor and a franchisee.
Yeah.
Got a couple of those on my list of.
Because that's a great model, because most franchisors will provide training as part of the package. So they'll say, it's going to cost you
marketing.
It's going to cost you £50,000 to buy our franchise, or however much it may be. But we'll provide training, we'll provide marketing, we'll provide advertising, we'll tell you how to interview staff. So you get a whole package from most of them, and it really sets you up well. But in a place like McDonald's, I think there might still be the feel of being an employee, even though you own that, because you have to adhere to certain standards. You have to buy the produce from specific sellers and things like that. So I would be
There's
wary.
No autonomy at all, is there?
Absolutely.
But that's why it's so successful.
Yes, yeah. So
if you buy that, you buy into the whole thing.
Yeah. Whereas I think a lot of other franchises, I had a friend who bought a franchise for selling industrial hand cleaner, a bit like Swerfiga. I don't know if you know the name.
I remember that. My dad used that.
Yeah. Well, it was a product that was similar to Swerfiga, and he rented a van from them, bought their product from them, and he had to do a minimum number of sales every month in order to be able to pay them their share. But other than that, he could do what he liked. And he did, and he failed, because what he liked was not working very long hours and not traveling too far. So he didn't put the effort in, and consequently he failed. But I think the right franchise can be a great business model for somebody, because you're getting help with your marketing and the business processes and things.
Can you tell everybody, like, if they wanted to get hold of you, if they wanted you to be the public speaker at their next big event, how do they get hold of you?
I'll just go to my website, www.mcginty.net. Nice, simple one, mcginty.net. And all the information's there. It's got my phone number, contact details, things like that, and lots of examples of my work on there. And it's got a few of my Toastmasters competition speeches in there. So
I saw those.
yeah, and if nothing else, it's entertaining. Yeah.
Very
So
funny. You are
yeah,
very, very funny speaker.
yes, that's one of my selling points is my humor. I like life's too short to be serious all the time, Trudy. It really is. So yeah. So even if people go there, not even to buy my services, just to be entertained, that'll make me happy.
Brilliant. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, James, for coming on. And yeah, best of luck with all of your future endeavors. I guess you'll be going till you're about 107.
We are hoping. We are hoping. So thanks very much for inviting me along, Trudy. I can't believe that's an hour past. It was an absolute blast. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you.